Hello everybody and welcome back to SEENT Movies and Television with Matty and Stephen. I am Stephen, and to the left of me,
Matty.
It was my left. We got a good one for you tonight. I thinks me thinks. After reviewing the last couple episodes, I thought maybe we get a little format going here and try and like slice through a few things relatively quick, but without compromising our review powers. So we're going to review for you this evening Bullet Train, starring Brad Pitt, Joey King, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Bryan Tyree Henry, Andrew Koji, Hiroyuki Sanada, Michael Shannon, Sandra Bullock, and Bad Bunny, Logan Lerman, Zazie Beetz, and a number of other people who aren't as famous as those people I just mentioned. It's directed by David Leitch, I'm guessing, and written by Zach Olkiewicz, and based on the book by Kotaro Isaka, Bullet Train. To start it off, we're just going to give our general thoughts, how we felt about the film, whether we think you should go and watch it. If we didn't like anything, this will be a non-spoiler section. After that, we'll get into some other categories that tread on spoiler territory. So I'll just go first. I hated it at first. I went into this movie thinking I was really going to despise it just based on the trailer. I felt like the trailer gave you the whole movie. I'm not the biggest fan of the Deadpool movies. I'm not the worst fan of the Deadpool movies. They're all right. It's not my thing exactly. But I felt like it was going to kind of be along the lines of that same sense of humor and plot heavy as opposed to being story heavy. There's a difference between those two. And so the first 45 minutes or so, I just despised. I thought it was really not good. I thought the sense of humor was basic. I thought some of the performances in the beginning were a little basic as well. Actually, that's not true. I think the performances were fairly solid throughout, but I think the writing suffered a little bit in the beginning, getting us introduced into this world, getting us acquainted with these characters, and getting us ready for the ride on the bullet train. I personally think that it turned somewhere down halfway through it. It almost felt like it was a completely different director from the first like 40-50 minutes of the movie, and it really started to work for me. I think I think it's worth a watch, actually. I think it's a lot better than I was expecting, for sure, and actually kind of rose above those expectations to a certain degree where I was really enjoying it. I think you could easily cut off that first 45 minutes and have a pretty solid action flick right there. How'd you feel about it, Matty? Let me hear your general thoughts.
Oh, I thought it was meh.
This is fair.
Yeah, I mean, I saw like what you were saying about the beginning. I agree. You could easily cut out a lot of that. I mean, I guess I thought the performances were solid. I just don't know if I cared about anybody in it. I just didn't really care what was happening. I didn't really care why Brad Pitt needed to get this case. I don't care that it was fate that brought all this stuff together, and I don't know. However, I will say that the last half of it does get a little more exciting, and then it just gets really CG heavy, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
But I will say, I was in my car driving home, and there was a ladybug in my car, which I thought was really weird, as Brad Pitt's nickname in it is Ladybug, and they're supposed to be lucky, or they carry like the 7 sorrows on them, and which you find out in the movie, and blah, 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 through Japanese lore. I also thought it was a waste of Andrew Koji, who I love, and need to see him doing better things than running around being a sweaty, deadbeat father who can barely use a weapon. Just saying.
Dang. Okay, man. I was hating on this movie pretty hard just from the trailer going into it. In our group chats, I was hating on something I hadn't seen. So, it worked better for me, and I think, but I can agree with what Matty's saying here, and he's not pulling no punches here, folks.
That's true.
Nor do I think he ever does.
I will say though, real quick, like you said, I do think if you're into this type of like actiony kind of movie, it's just like it's a long action movie though. Like an action movie, like horror and action got to be like a tight hour 50. 50 pushing it, 52 pushing it. They got to be tight. I mean, a 2 hour and 6 minute long, like I feel like you could have cut some characters. You could have, I don't really know. I just like some of it worked, some of it didn't. And overall, I mean, if you're into this type of movie, I think you should see it. If it has intrigued you by the trailer, go see it. If you're someone who watched the trailer and went, not for me, trust that instinct.
Sure thing. I think, yeah, definitely. If you're the type of person, which I am not this type of person, that can turn their brain off and just enjoy the action, by all means, this is like a masterpiece for that type of off switch. Not to say that I think it's a masterpiece in any way. It's okay. It's an all right movie, but I do think it's worth the watch if this is your type of thing. It has really good cinematography. I'll say we'll get to that in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I would say if you got like a Saturday afternoon sometime, wait for it to come to streaming, and it's fairly fun. Mostly in that second half. If your sense of humor is, for lack of a better word, on the basic side, I don't know that anybody would identify with that so much. But if you're not, if you tend to laugh at just whatever thing that the movie's telling you to laugh at, then you'll probably like the first 45 minutes of this movie. So with all that being said, I think, it's kind of a hit or miss for us in that regard. Ending our non-spoiler thing, I would say it's all right, maybe worth a watch. I think Maddie would agree. And now moving on to a little bit more spoiler territory, we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty of how the movie was made here with execution and storytelling. I think the biggest thing that hinders it, again, is that first part of the movie. And I think mostly the writing, for me, mostly the sense of humor. And the sense of humor does match up with like the Deadpool movies for me. I got to tell you, I don't really think Ryan Reynolds is very funny. And I think a lot of the writing, I hate when they just have like really common phrases that are like flavor of the month kind of phrases that turn up in the dialogue. And there was a lot of bruh and brez and dude and like just kind of, I know it's the way that people tend to talk, especially a lot of people tend to talk this way now with just the common vernacular, but I think it serves your movie better if you step away from those kind of conventions, and especially for a movie like this that's very comic booky, very actiony, to go ahead and kind of have more fun with it yourself. And for shit's sake, man, read some great screenplays, some of the screenplays of the great screenplays of all time, or just read some books or whatever, how dialogue tends to work. Because I think a lot of times people lean into just this real contemporary vernacular, and it tends to be cringy in my book. Also, another thing I wanted to say is I feel like the storytelling, editing is sloppy. I absolutely despise when a movie jumps back to 26 days earlier, 3 weeks earlier. Like, let your movie start where it starts and move forward. Don't be jumping back. Yeah. Same could be said for like the flashback scenes, which I think is just not good writing. It's just not. What do you have to say about execution and storytelling, you think?
So when I was watching this movie, I knew it was like, I remember hearing it was based on a novel, and the whole time I was watching this movie, I was like, I bet the novel's like 10 times better and way more exciting.
Totally.
And it makes sense to do those jumps in a novel, because it's like you end a chapter, next chapter, it could say set 26, like,
right.
You're finding out about Andrew Koji's dad, what he went through, like in a book that just sort of works, and then you get back to it, or you do a part one. I don't know how that book's laid out, but like,
right.
Sometimes I feel like there's too much going back and forth. Like, just trust your audience to know. Like, I don't mind if they're like, hey, here's what happened to this character, or like Michael Shannon's character or whatever. Like, here's some backstory. That's fine. I don't care for that jump back. But it's literally something that I've just seen in the movie I'm watching right now, that they flash back to remind you, like, oh, remember when they did this? And you're like, yes, I'm watching this goddamn movie. It's one of those things that bugs me. I don't mind if you're trying to catch me up and make me relate to a character more, because there is a history there. Like, for example, Lemon and Tangerine. Probably my two favorite characters. I thought their banter was pretty good for the most part. I mean, they grew up together, and I thought it was pretty good. It's not my I've seen better duos who are killers, but I would probably say they're probably my standout two, where I could have just watched an entire movie about them on exploits.
But yeah, I agree. Like, my biggest, I had a lot of problems with their banter, like especially right at the beginning. I was just like, for most part, like the dialogue and stuff felt very tedious to me. The same way with like those edits where they'd show you something again that you just saw. But then back and forth, I didn't hate them either. And I kind of went into this not really digging Bryan Tyree Henry at the moment. He really failed me in the Godzilla movie he was in. Eternals was just kind of a big meh. Yeah. And so I like Atlanta, and I thought he was great in Atlanta. And I think I've said some stuff where like, he's basic as hell, but he's not. He's got his chops. He knows what he's doing. To be honest, we'll get to performance here next, but I think most of the actors in here have some pretty good chops. for me, yeah, it was just the editing and like the pacing and just really that first part of the movie when we're just trying to get to know these characters. I was like, man, they're all annoying.
Yeah.
That I just don't care.
Yeah, there was a part in like the editing too where you like meet Brad Pitt and then you go on this side tangent, or like you meet Andrew Koji, then it's Brad Pitt, and then you go on this other side tangent, and then it's like, oh yeah, Brad Pitt's the star of this movie, and I'm like,
That was, yeah.
but is he? Who am I?
Right.
Like, I felt like I didn't know who I was supposed to follow, or that's my whole thing with this movie. I just don't feel like I really cared about anyone. Like, I didn't really care about Brad Pitt's character. I'm like, he made it so far. Like, at that point, I'm just like, well, I guess he should live. You know, like that, I mean, I was honestly rooting for Aaron Taylor Johnson because I like him as an actor and don't see him in nearly enough stuff. I thought I honestly standout performance from him.
Yeah, that guy could carry a damn movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that very beginning part where, you know, like most movies that are of this ilk will try and get you with like a interesting and evocative, mysterious opening and then hit you with those credits and some kitschy piece of music. That this movie was peppered with. You know, the music was actually, you know, I enjoyed it for the most part. But that beginning part where it's like really drab and sorrowful and somber, and then he goes to put a gun to his head or whatever, and it's like, bam, you know, like the whole title comes up and the cool music, and you're like, wait, that wasn't like a good kickoff, you know? Like I'm sad. This music doesn't make sense with like my emotions right now. And then we cut to Brad Pitt. So it's like those kind of things. Like you really could. You know, I understand starting on the Japanese family there, but I don't know. There could have been a better lead in, you know, even if it was fade, if it was like a fade out there and then we fade up to like the music coming in, like, but they just do that stark cut, you know, it's some real like kind of Tarantino influence, maybe. I don't know. Go ahead.
I honestly wish it would have just started with Brad Pitt like walking through the train station trying to find the locker.
Yeah, because if they're gonna,
and then he like finds it and he puts the gun down. She's like, "You should take the gun," and then it should be like bullet train, and you're like, "All right, I'm ready to step in."
See, Matty's a genius.
I mean, listen, the more Andrew Koji you can give me, always. I think he's great. I think he's, you know, really underutilized in this movie, but the only thing that was kind of cool, and this is dark, was that his son got pushed off a roof. So I was like, well, whoever did that is a villain, and you have set that standard.
Totally.
Like, whoever that person ends up being in this movie, I'm like, all right, they're a villain, and I don't care for them. Set up, good. Because, I mean, you know, you do anything to an animal or a little kid that has no control over what's happening to them, you're already a villain, and good setup, but I just don't think it was the way to open this movie. I think opening it with a fun opening with Brad Pitt walking or like running into some of these characters we would meet later on, or like, you know, like he like bumps into Andrew Koji, I think, and he's like, I thought everyone was nice here or whatever, which is also kind of like some of the stuff is just like tourist in it. I don't know. And I guess I just try not to go to a place and be super touristy. So some of the comments Brad Pitt was making, I was like, come on, really? This is a writing?
Totally unbelievable movie. Like through and through. But I think if they're going to lean on flashbacks and stuff anyway, you could have set up that, you know, the father and the elder and the kid who got pushed off the roof. You could have set that up somewhere else, maybe. I think Maddie's right. You should have started it with high energy because you know that they wanted to, but, you know, I'm guessing the novel starts with some kind of prologue there or something like that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say definitely more Andrew Koji. Like let's not be mincing words here. Let's not mess around anymore. This guy is a star.
It's true.
We need more of him. We need season 3 of Warrior. Give him a good property. Snake Eyes was bollocks, man. But with that being said, let's jump into characters and performance. What did you think overall of like the characters in this, the actors and their performances? You kind of mentioned some stuff here, but was there anything else that like stuck out to you? And then I'll jump in after you're done.
I mean, I guess like characters were kind of fun. I mean, I've seen this movie. It's like Snatch. It's like every fucking what's his name? Guy Ritchie movie. That's what I was thinking. It's like the characters, which is fun to see. Like I said, I liked Lemon and Tangerine. I liked a lot of that kind of dialogue back and forth. I really liked that he had like his Thomas the Tank Engine. Sorry.
Yeah, they beat that joke to death.
Well, that's that. I was gonna say that. I was like. They're like diesel. I was like, I fucking get it. You could just put the sticker on her fucking back and I get it. Jesus Christ. It's one of those movies that's made for people who are like, you know, like I got up and used the bathroom twice. I had a lot of water today, people. I usually don't try to do this, and I still knew what was going on when I came back.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
if
Because
you're
they
watching it
repeat
all the
it.
way through, yeah. And I hate that, like, beat it into your audience's head. Like, to me, if I've missed something, I'm like, oh, how'd that happen? That seemed pretty interesting. Not
Hmm.
getting up and using the bathroom, just something I might have missed because it was a subtle thing. Makes me
Right.
want to watch that movie again. I don't real quick, when I go into a movie now, I want to come out of it and be like, I want to watch that again and
Yeah,
again
for
and
sure.
again and again. And when people go, "Oh, that's a great movie. Oh, it's one of my favorites of all time," I go, "Well, how many times have you watched it?" "Well, I saw it the once, but it's amazingly done." I'm like,
Yeah. It's not that good.
That's not a favorite movie to me, man. It just doesn't
Yeah.
work. Like, I want to be able to put that movie in and be like, "Hey guys, we got to watch this. This movie's fucking fantastic."
Yeah.
Like, so it's a movie that I walked out of the theater going, "Well, I've seen it and I don't need to see it again."
Yeah, no, I agree. The one of the things that really bothered me in terms of characters, I thought they all stood out very well. I thought they all had pretty good looks going on for them, really stylistic, kind of Smoking Aces style, differentiated characters. But you know, just these stupid, cute little names that everybody has. Actually, the Ladybug I didn't have a big issue with, but by the time we got to the Prince, and it's like it's always such a juxtaposition of what that character actually is. You know, this little girl, and she
Yeah.
called the Prince or whatever, and what were the other ones? Lemon and Tangerine. You know, I like that didn't do a whole lot for me until later in the end when it actually comes around and they have that whole
Yeah.
serendipitous moment and that kind of thing. Like they did make it work, but going into it for me, it was very hard to swallow because I was feeling the same way. You know, it's just like one of those movies where they're really trying to shove down your throat how cool everything is, and I can't think of anything less cool than trying to be cool.
Yeah.
So that was hard to swallow, but I will say, like, I think Brad Pitt did a good job in this movie, as he always does. His chops are great. He's been in the industry for a long time. He knows what he's
Hmm.
doing. I feel like his character was bordering on being excessively annoying at times, though,
Yes.
which was driving me a little nuts. But he was solid. Aaron Taylor Johnson, this guy is an absolute star as well. Every time he's on camera, his charisma, his screen presence, he needs another franchise. You know, Kick Ass, those movies were great. They were fun. Um, and you know, he's kind of just been in and out of like little bit parts here and there, and they haven't really utilized him quite as well. He's always a side character or whatever, but this guy has some serious chops and he can carry an action franchise. It's unfortunate that he's going in to Craven with like this weird synopsis that they have going. He's an animal lover already, and or all of a sudden, and you know, not immediately a Spider-Man villain, which is what
Yeah.
I think we were hoping for. But then, you know, Bryan Tyree Henry, I like him. He actually won me over in this movie a little bit more. He's a good dude. I like that guy. Let's see who else we got. Joey King. She was really great. She's a great actress. I think the character itself was a little bit annoying, and by the end of it, you really wanted to see her get hit by that truck,
Yes.
for sure. So she did her job well. Really great, actually. Joey King was good. The two people I wanted to see the most, Andrew Koji and Hiroyuki Sanada, you know, they were
Hmm.
heavily underused for a movie that takes place in
Agreed.
Japan,
Yes.
and we have just like a ton of, not a ton, but primarily white characters at the forefront, and then this whole Japanese motif at the bottom. I think it worked pretty well, but I guarantee you they're in the book a lot more probably.
Hmm.
The surprise Michael Shannon, I knew he was in the movie, but I didn't exactly put it together until the end. That was really cool. His Russian accent was not very good. It was pretty terrible. Yeah, I think for me, probably the same as you, the standout and the MVP of the entire movie in terms of their performance and their character is Aaron Taylor Johnson's Tangerine. He was
Yeah.
great. He was absolutely great.
Yeah, I mean, just going through Brad Pitt, I thought was good, but he's been in the industry. I'll show up for a Brad Pitt movie that looks fun any day.
Sure.
He did get a little annoying sometimes in it, but I
Yeah.
guess his character is kind of annoying. Yeah, I mean, Zazie Beetz, Wasted. Um, who else? Like, yeah, I mean, Andrew Koji and cannot pronounce his father's name.
Hiroyuki Sanada, the
Yeah,
elder.
I mean,
Yeah. They
I
both
love
made
that.
another
Like,
movie together.
yeah, I mean, it's just like you have those two in a movie together, and this is what you
Yeah.
do with them.
Right.
That's I like Michael Shannon about everything. The Russian accent didn't really bug me because I know he's not Russian, so I was like, whatever.
Sure.
And at that point in the movie, I was like, cool, whatever. I just
Whatever.
thought he had a
Yeah.
cool look, and you know, uh,
Yeah. I feel like once the movie allowed itself to tell its story, everything and all the characters kind of congealed a little bit for me, and it started working. I was like, oh, actually, I was ready to leave the theater and be like, trash, you know.
Honestly, your comments, I thought you were gonna be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, because
I was texting. That's why I was like, do I have to go see it now?
Yeah, I was texting the boys during the movie about that 45-50 minute mark. I was like, this movie is terrible, you know, and I'm glad it turned me around to a certain degree, because I did have some fun. Here, let's check out special effects, stunts, gags, kills, fight scenes. How did you feel about this stuff? Here, I'll jump in after your piece.
I thought this, I mean, it's as good as CG can get with a bullet train moving, you know, crashing and all that. I mean, it all just looks kind of fake at this point, but I mean, what else are you going to do? Like Practical. I said, I mean, but we ain't getting that no more.
Yeah, for the most 1940 anymore.
I thought the fighting was pretty okay. It wasn't anything that I hadn't seen before. You know, I mean, I thought it was pretty, I liked that it was kind of ruthless and just kind of, you know, trying to scrape by to win these fights for like Brad Pitt's character sometimes. I do like little moments where like they stop and he has like the water and he's like, oh, can we talk about this? He's like, no. And then he like throws the bottle at him. I like little things that like break up a fight like that. I did like that when Brad Pitt's character, when Ladybug and Tangerine are fighting, that there was almost like this, like he's like, you're going to answer that? Like, there is like, why are we really doing this? One of us is going to kill the other one. You might as well take this phone call. I thought those kind of gags I like, because usually like if you're looking at like a John Wick movie or action movies, it's like you fight that guy till he's dead.
Right.
So I did like these little breaks between this fight scene to be like, you know, like, man, it's kind of hard. I do need a little drink of water to get through the rest of this and stuff. I thought some of that was kind of fun. But overall, like, I'd say my top favorite fight in it was probably the samurai sword fight with that
was good.
The elder
swords come out.
I thought that was really cool. I mean, it's all right. I mean, it's a bare, but like it didn't really do anything amazing. I feel like the John Wick movies are better for the action, but you know, you have one guy who's like a pacifist and doesn't use weapons, so he just uses what's around him.
That was really one of the shining parts for me, was that Brad Pitt's character didn't use a gun and they found creative ways for him to fight. I thought that worked really well. I was like, okay, that's pretty original, especially for your main character, you know. That worked for me later on in the movie, and I thought it was pretty clever. But yeah, you know, overall it was like, you know, at times leading into the later fight scenes are much better. You can tell they spent more time, more money on the later fight scenes and the later set pieces. Earlier on, there was some like Chris Nolan kind of like, don't know what the fuck is going on kind of fighting. And yeah, just, it was a little bit choppy early on, but I'd say the samurai fight and then the fight between Tangerine and Ladybug, it started with some of that Nolan kind of stuff, but it really started to elevate itself, and you could see them really putting in some work. And especially Aaron Taylor Johnson, after he's on when he chases after the train and jumps back on the train, punches the window out. I'm like, man, give this guy a franchise already. He is a goddamn hero. You know, he was so good. But yeah, and then, you know, there's quite a bit of gore and bloody guts. There's some decent kills in the movie, I would say. The best one probably being the Michael Shannon kill at the end, just with that headpiece flying off.
Oh, I love when the samurai sword goes through his shoulder and it just goes, keep putting pressure on it to get it down. And I was like, oh, that's good. You hear those noises and that and you're like, I mean, I did think it was pretty brutal, and I liked the violence level. I thought was kind of fun because I don't know the last time I guess maybe Prey is probably the last time I've seen something kind of violent like that with like that amount. I don't even think Prey had that much. Like maybe there is a lot of blood. Sometimes I don't see it. People, and it's you know, I just felt like it was like sometimes I was like, ooh, all right, okay,
so much more.
Yeah. I just didn't expect it, I guess, in this movie, because you could easily get away with this movie kind of being like a PG-13 movie if you wanted to.
Yeah, you could.
You know, you could like throw people off the train. It's like, yeah, they died, but PG-13. You know,
and then it would have floated right to the bottom bin. I think that's the shining factor probably for most people, is going to be a lot of these kills and the violence. You know.
Yeah.
Which I'd like to point out to our audience: I don't condone violence in real life, nor do I enjoy it to any real degree other than maybe professional wrestling when I was a teenager. But violence in movies is great.
Yes.
Violence in movies is awesome.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the level of violence, the violence level, what you called it, was it was adequate. It was adequate.
Yes,
I think.
yeah,
I think it actually helps this movie too. You know, to
yeah.
make it more or less memorable in certain scenes.
You know what? Real quick, you know what my other favorite fight scene was? The Zazie Beetz fight. Like, yes, she was underutilized, but I thought
Yeah,
like when she like stabs him with the needle, and he's like, "Ah!" and then he quickly throws it out and throws it in her neck and
that
plunges
was
it.
good. Yeah,
And then he's like, "And you don't have an antidote?" He's like 30 seconds, and she like pulls it out, and he goes real quick. And
yeah.
that whole banter with like, "You didn't bring a second one?" It's like, oh, it's like he's such a dick.
Yeah, yeah. And then when
So,
she killed Bad Bunny, he played the wolf assassin.
I have
Bad
no
Bunny,
idea who
the
that is.
yeah, he's a Latino music sensation guy. I don't really listen to him. Some people I know like him, whatever. I don't know Bad Bunny. I'm sorry. But
I'm not apologizing.
the wedding scene where everybody's like vomiting blood and dying. Like I thought that
Yeah,
was a nice touch, for
yeah,
sure. And to add to what you were saying, like it for like the entire movie, it's really tough for me to sympathize with any kind of hitman character
hmm,
because their whole purpose in life and as far as we know in the world that they live in is to kill people. So it's like I'm laughing at a lot of these people's jokes, but I'm just like in the back of my mind like how many people have they just murdered in cold blood, you know? Brad
yeah,
Pitt as well, you know? It's just like it's hard to be like, oh yeah, this is a cool world, I want to hang out with these guys. So like, no, you could die at any second with
yeah,
these characters. And you know, sometimes, you know, that took me out of it a little bit because the movie altogether is a little unbelievable, really
yeah.
far-fetched. Like, where was the security on this train? Like, how was the
There
whole
was one
part where
guy. There
yeah,
was one guy checking Brad
right.
Pitt's ticket for like the first part of the movie, and then he's nowhere to be seen
Nowhere
for
to
the
be
rest of it.
found. And then
Yeah,
they do that intercom bit where it's like I've bought all the tickets so there's nobody else
yeah,
on the train or whatever. But even leading up to that when they're in like the quiet car, like
yeah.
just because you're not
Oh,
talking, if you're fighting and throwing laptops around, you're making a lot of fucking noise, you know. It's
yeah.
just like dumb shit like that. Like I said, if you can turn your brain off to stuff like that, I can't, but if you can, you'll enjoy it. And I'm sure most people will probably enjoy this movie, to be honest. I have high standards.
That whole scene with the older lady turning around and telling him to be quiet was just like, how many times are you gonna do this gag? Because the
Yeah.
two times I was like, all right, this is kind of funny, and then the third
And
time, and there might even be like a fourth when he calls her like a bag of dicks or something, and I was
yeah, it
like,
says eat a bag
okay,
of dicks. Yeah,
yeah. He's like,
it's
I'm
just
sorry,
more to
I'm
get.
working
You
on
know,
it.
I enjoyed his penchant for like all the introspective stuff. Like I liked that, you know, where he was trying to like figure himself out and stuff. But there was again, like with a lot of this movies, it was a lot of beating the dead horse with their jokes. They just kept going with them.
Well, yeah, and it
Um,
seems like you could have trimmed off a lot of this fat and gotten it to an hour like 56-minute movie.
you absolutely could. I think there's
Yeah,
a really extremely solid action film in there that's about a hour and a half, and just what we get is kind of a mess. It's
yeah.
really sloppy. The last half comes together a little bit more. Like I said earlier, feels to me like a whole other director came in and took over. Um, with that being
Well,
said, let's jump into closing remarks since I think we're kind of headed that way.
yeah. Closing remarks. I feel like, so I said when I was watching this movie, it felt like I would much rather read the book almost. I feel like it would be a little more fun to read, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a case of maybe where I haven't read the book, so I don't know what's different, what's not. But it seems like the runtime of this movie might be because they wanted to do the book justice and try to adapt it
Right.
as best they could, which is
Sure.
great. I mean, I always want that, but sometimes you got to cut some stuff.
You got to cut some
And
stuff.
and I
You got to
definitely
make
think like,
sacrifices.
yeah, I definitely think like the whole snake getting lost plot point was unnecessary than the Hornet showing up. Maybe it would have been
Right.
better if Brad Pitt's, because I don't think, like, real quick, I know it's closing remarks, but
No, you're
I
good.
don't
Take your
remember
time.
us ever seeing Brad Pitt actually kill anyone from the past to have him, like he's there because of he takes the place of Ryan Reynolds' cameo character Carver,
Sure.
who has
Carver.
a tummy ache, which is hilarious in itself that an assassin can call out of work for a tummy ache. Like,
Yeah.
I feel bad, and I work at a furniture store when I call out for a tummy ache. It's like the ball's on this guy, and like Brad Pitt always says, he's like the worst assassin. Like, not
Yeah.
that he's badass, he's just but not a good dude.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty funny. But I like I don't know. It almost would have been better if Brad Pitt would have been on that train and more fate would have been like maybe he did kill the cartel guy's family.
Yeah, and he's just dealing with
by
this.
accident because he's always saying about bad luck, but he's actually really
Right.
lucky.
Yeah.
But maybe this would have been a case of like a really good bad luck incident where he didn't mean, he just means to kill the wolf, but he ends up killing these people and he feels bad about it. This is why he goes to therapy, besides just being a assassin, which probably has its own, you know, we've all seen Barry. We know how it goes. You know, so I wish there was something more there and they would have cut some of the characters down to maybe just, you know, like, because like you said, Zazie Beetz kind of just is like in a kid's cartoon costume and then she just shows up and it's a really quick, like, to me, let's cut that and figure out a way around it to make a story, more cohesive story. That all being said, it's a meh movie. I don't know if I would ever watch it again. Maybe several years from now when it's on Netflix, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I remembered. I didn't really care for that movie. Maybe. Yeah. But like I said in the beginning, I think if this is your kind of flick, I can turn my brain off. It's just there's just some run times generally these days get me, especially for an action film. Like, come on, man, this isn't Heat. I don't need a 3-hour movie. You know, it's, you know, like that's the kind of movie I need to be 2 to 3 hours long, you know, good character development, interesting characters. Yeah, I'd say if the trailer grabbed you, go see it. If it didn't, don't see it. Wait to rent it. If you want to watch it with some buds, having some beer, smoking some doobies, or just wait until Clerks 3 comes out and do all that stuff and watch Clerks 3.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and I'll just add to that for mine, you know, I think like kind of back to that whole snake thing or whatever, it would have been very easy for Zazie Beetz' character to just have been the assassin who uses poison or something like that. We definitely didn't need the news cutaway where it's like the snake is loose or whatever. Somebody stole the snake. Oh my God, why? You know, and it could very easily, because it was a good scene and I wish she was in it more, which you could have had her in it more, that being the case. She could have been killing people on the train or something, trying to get to Brad Pitt. I don't know. But you know, I tend to pride myself on this ability to watch a trailer and be like, that's not going to be a good movie, or that's going to be a great movie, just from a few frames. I know it sounds ridiculous, folks, but I'm a movie expert. You can trust me on that, and I can.
Don't play framed with him. He's too good. I play with him. He wins every day.
Framed.wtf. If you're not playing, go to that site, framed.wtf. It's a great movie game based on movie frames, and it's just my type of game. Because I'm telling you, I could watch the trailer and be like, that's not going to be that great. I am glad out of the film, by the end of it, I was able to enjoy it. I felt like when it did let itself tell its own story, when the story actually began, instead of all these false starts and all these weird motion graphics and getting to know all these wacky characters, it actually became a pretty good movie, a pretty enjoyable movie. I think it's a little bit more than meh, to be honest, very surprisingly so, but I doubt I'll watch it again. I think if spoilers aren't a big deal for you and you made it this far and you're still mulling it over, I'd say it's good. Wait for streaming. If your money bags, wait for a rental. Or, you know, what you should do is get your Regal pass like we did. They're not paying us to say that, but that is a good deal, man. It's just too bad that there's so many shitty movies out to go see, and like every now and again a good one. But, you know, we'll be utilizing that for the show in of itself. But I didn't hate it, and I'm very surprised. And, you know, the boys on the chat, they were telling me it's fun, and for me it's hard. I have
Stephen
no chills sometimes.
Word.
I hate fun.
He hates that word when you say a movie's fun. Stephen immediately goes, no.
yeah, right.
What do you mean fun?
But I actually did have some fun in this one.
It's weird. So, it's a weird case. I'm surprised people, honestly. Boggled over here.
Yeah. So for you folks who wanted to try and do a more condensed episode, a little bit shorter, a little bit more digestible than like a full hour long of like a meandering conversation, you let us know what you think in the comments. Did you want to add anything more to the discussion here before we head out, Matavio? I will also say this movie is better than The Gray Man that came out on the Netflix. That is very similar, I would say, in type of conceptual, you know, actioner kind of thing. That was a snooze fest, that Gray Man, but this movie actually was more enjoyable than that. So if that's where you're teetering on, I would say go see Bullet Train instead.
You know, real quick,
yeah, go ahead.
both The Gray Man and Bullet Train could really use from just learning how to, like, because they're both based on novels.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's so much, like, people want good adaptions of things these days,
Mm-hmm.
that I think filmmakers are afraid to make those leaps to be like, well, let's just cut this. Like, this is a book
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
And we don't need to, this doesn't make any sense. Why should we make this movie this long?
Yeah.
It's another thing. Like, I think there's a good hour 30, 40-minute Gray Man movie somewhere.
Sure.
I also think there's a great Bullet Train movie, an hour 40-minute Bullet Train movie somewhere.
So that's what we think of Bullet Train. Thanks for watching this time, sticking with us. We'll be back again next week with another movie. We kind of go down to the wire when we're deciding what it's going to be. But if you'd like to come engage with us on Instagram, our Instagram is down here at the bottom of the screen, SEENT Movies TV, at SEENT Movies TV. We are primarily on Instagram and YouTube, so come check us out. Leave comments in the YouTube. We'd love to hear what you think about Bullet Train or some of the other movies that we had mentioned. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back next week. I think that's all I got for Bullet Train.
And that's Bullet Train. SEENT!